desk and writing up an article that I'm going to try to release and get out there tomorrow. And I had this crazy idea come into my head, and I was like, what if we just had like a bunch of random people come onto the show and we just discuss politics and talk about what's going on right before the election, because this is going to be kind of my last chance to get out a voice before Tuesday hits, because I have a job and a real life that I have to attain to during the week. So I messaged Jerry Wayne this morning, and I was like, dude, totally off the wall, but do you want to come on the show today? And he's messaged me back. He's like, yeah, you mind if I bring a friend? So we got Chad on with, what's his podcast called? Chad, what's your your radio show?
I'm fired up, bro.
With I'm Fired Up. And we got him coming on. And then Jeff Dornik, I was talking to him about this, and he's like, well, I'm kind of free. So then I was like, well, you can come on. And then Rob and I have been discussing this for a little bit now. So at least I planned with one person, which I guess is better than my normal. So we got Rob back on, and we're just going to have a good time, hang out. And if you guys have any questions or any topics that you'd like us to discuss, just bring them up. Let's just have this out. This is kind of our last big shot before the election. So I guess everybody kind of knows who everybody is for the most part. I'm not going to get into that because I really just want to jump into this conversation. Rob, how many people have voted already? It's been like
the GK thing. Can I have people go over there to ask questions? They go to your page?
Yeah, go to the GK or on the GK Facebook page, GK Twitter. We are followed. The tag is at the GK online. You should find them there, or you'll find them at Straight White Shoe, and you'll find it posted up there as well. So, guys, like a huge portion, more people have voted already early than what have voted in the entire election last year. That's insane. So where do you guys think, like, predictions? Let's just go predictions right off the bat.
Trump in a landslide.
Trump in a landslide. Really? Why do you think that?
Because I believe that we've been focused on the Trump thing so much, and the Democrats have basically set up Biden and whatever her name is, Kamala, to basically, they've been the sacrificial lamb. I think this has been about the Senate from go. I think that there's so much hate out there that they actually just want to win the Senate and impeach him and make him feel it. That's my opinion.
Okay. Rob, what do you think?
Who?
Rob.
So prediction wise, like if you actually go off the data, I don't think you can comfortably predict anything, since everything's everywhere. But when it comes down to just my gut feeling, I think that Trump's going to have it. I'm not going to say landslide because I don't know what we define landslide is anymore. Because I don't think that there is any way that we're going to get to the 48 state win that Reagan had in 80 or the 49 state win that he had in 84. But like I think these days anything over 350 would probably be a landslide in electorally. I think he'll take Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin's kind of up in the air, but like all the other outliers like Arizona, North Carolina, Florida, I think he's got those. I don't think Georgia's a battleground state. I'm sorry. And with as many people that are voting, I just go with the enthusiasm gap and how Joe Biden rallies are just ghost towns. And
right,
I've never seen anything like that before at least just push bodies into a separate place and say that there's people coming out.
Yeah, dude, it's like a ghost town. It's like, those old Western movies where it's like the two gunslingers besides the one gunslinger doesn't even know where he is, and then like a tumbleweed just blows by.
But even people watch there's more people watching. There would be more people watching a showdown than there are actually at a Biden rally, including the cameraman. There's no way, and then you see these the one that he had in Reading today, Trump had in Reading today. Wow, just wow! Like the guy draws people. They're willing to come out in the middle of a pandemic when there's nothing but fear on the airwaves. What can you say? I mean, we're people are kind of getting tired of it, and they're seeing an alternative.
Right.
I
hear
hope.
you, man. I just went to a Trump rally recently, like last week, and three rows back, like dead center. It was a great time, but it was like rain. It was freezing out there, and like there were so many people. It was ridiculous. There was a line out there that was 5 miles long to come in, and people were just willing to stand in it. So, and then I really think that, hey, how you doing? We have people texting now. It's awesome. Yeah, so there was a ton of people out there, and what I really witnessed there, like Donald Trump came out and he goes, "Hey, how many people have voted already?" And only 10% of the people rose their hand. That was it. So there's still this wave hasn't even started yet, and the way I look at it with like the election, which way it's going to go is I really think it's going to be a landslide, but I don't want to say that and deter anybody from going out to vote, because if you listen, you don't go vote, then you're going to make me a liar. So you have to go out there and still do it. Now, the reason why I think this is that because in 2016, well, obviously Trump won the election, right? When a lot of people didn't go out and vote. And a lot of people also like were kind of bipartisan. They're like, just vote for Hillary because Trump just said some bad words. You know, the media was already doing their part on that, and he still won. Now you have people that voted for Trump last time. They're going to vote again, and they're going to vote for Trump again. The people that didn't vote last time, they're going to vote now, and they're probably going to vote for Trump. And then you have people that are from the left that are switching to the right. I don't see anybody from the right going to the left. It's just not happening. The black vote is coming out in swarms, and I think that I don't think they're going to meet the quite percentage-wise of what Obama did, but I do think the actual number of the black vote is actually going to be higher for Trump than the number was for the population. What's the word I'm looking for? The amount of people the black community will vote more for Trump than did Obama. So. And not only that, with me being in there as well, like I think I really swayed a lot of the union votes. I had a huge margin, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm seeing like where I work with these guys hand in hand, and I'm seeing like 80% of the union vote is going to go red. And from I just recently asked for my union representatives to step down because they endorsed Joe Biden. So, and you'd be amazed to see the amount of people that have commented or, like you kind of look at the reactions to it, and you can kind of gauge who's for it. The reactions are overwhelmingly in support of my comment to ask our representatives to step down for endorsing Joe Biden.
Yeah, Jeff, what about you, man? I mean, you were just telling me about crazy experience. Like you went out and voted. How was like? What do you think this is going to go?
Well, you know, again, I'm like I always say, I'm out here in communist California. It's a whole different ball game than I think you get in other places. And you know, so we actually went and voted. And we were talking with the guy at the polls, and you know we pre-filled out our ballots. We intentionally walked it in. We're like, we're not trusting the post office. We're not trusting handing it to anybody else or putting it in a random box. We're going to the polling station, put it in the box ourselves. He even offered to put it in there for us. I'm like, yeah, nope, I'm going to do it myself. But we were talking with him, and he's like, yeah, we had a crap ton of first-time voters. And again, this is down in Orange County, so that's probably going to be a lot more, Trump votes and that sort of thing. But the interesting thing for me is that talking to a lot of my friends, I feel like when you're talking about people who are voting for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, it's typically people that already didn't vote for Trump. And so that's distinction number one. I've heard of very few, if any, actual people that were Trump supporters that flipped after ever since 2016. However, talking to a lot of people, there's a ton of people that are flipping from being never Trumpers, voting for Hillary, all that kind of stuff, and switching to vote for him. The momentum is definitely going for Trump. When you look at the data, the LGBTQ community, that's going hardcore towards Trump. The black community, that is trending towards Trump. The Latino community going towards Trump. Even today, got caught up in a Trump MAGA parade of cars, hundreds and hundreds of cars going down here through Southern California.
All that.
I didn't see a single white guy there. It was all minorities and hundreds of these cars going by. And I got to say, like, it was very patriotic. And then a couple of weeks ago, we went down to, there was a Trump rally down here. Literally all it was just to welcome Trump to Orange County, watch his motorcade go by and go over to a fundraiser. Thousands of people showed up. And it was a very patriotic event. Richard Grinnell is like hanging out the window, waving at everybody, giving high fives and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is that there is momentum, I feel like, and everything is trending towards Trump. If this election is honest, I feel like this is a landslide for Trump. The question is, how honest is this election actually going to be?
Jeff, I have a question if you don't mind, because
Go for it.
I have a prediction. Well, maybe not a prediction, but a hunch. And I want you to tell me how crazy I actually am. I think California is going to go red. Can you tell me if I'm crazy or not?
Okay. So here's the thing about it is, more than likely on paper, it's not going to go red because there's so much corruption. There's so many mail-in ballots. Every single registered voter in the state of California got a ballot, right? So the thing is that when you go back and you look at 2016, Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump by about 3 million votes out here in California, right? There was a lawsuit that got, I believe off the top of my head, it was either 1 million or 1.5 million registrations off the voter rolls, specifically because they were either dead, they're registered in another state, they shouldn't be registered at all, things like that. So we got about 1.5 million already taken off. Supposedly, there's another lawsuit that's in the works right now to get another 1 million to 1.5 million taken off that are fraudulent registrations. In that instance, that's a dead heat back in 2016. If you take those registrations off. Now, the thing is that, again, the momentum is trending towards Trump. In an honest election, I could see Trump winning California. The thing is that with Gavin Newsom running things out here, there's no way it's an honest election. I don't see Trump on paper actually winning. But again, legitimately, he would probably win California.
So I guess
that sucks.
Go ahead, man.
Like with ballot harvesting being a thing, like in California, being a legal thing in California, that's probably going to tip the scales pretty hard. I did not know about that lawsuit going 1.5 million voter registrations. That is huge. And my sister lives out in the communist California too, so I think she's trying to claw her way out as fast as she can. But
yeah, well, that's the unfortunate thing I feel like about California right now is I've got a lot of friends that are leaving. I know of a lot of, obviously like Daily Wire picked up and moved to Tennessee. You've got Joe Rogan that moved out to Austin, Texas. And I've been having a lot of friends pressuring me like, okay, guys, got to move to Iowa, got to move to Tennessee, whatever it is. And I'm like, but at the same time, if all the conservatives leave, there's no shot at taking back California. I feel like we're at that tipping point of if we can hold on for another couple of years, hopefully recall Gavin Newsom, get him out of there. And I'm praying that somebody like a Larry Elder who's kind of toying with the idea of running, or even I had on Aubrey Huff on my podcast talking, and he's toying with the idea of running for governor. I mean that would be an epic governorship out here in California if you get somebody like Aubrey Huff to run. I could see him taking on like a Gavin Newsom or something like that. But we would have no chance if all the conservatives up and leave and just go to another red state.
Problem is, I moved here from Ventura, California.
Yep.
Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So it was a little bit of I was all about, and I was born in the other communist state of Illinois. So I mean, I didn't know anything other than being a communist. And then I had this draw, and I found myself in South Carolina, and they're handing me a rifle with a silencer, and I'm like, I found where I need to be, and that's just what it is. And now I want to be as loud as I can and kick as many balls as I can in politicians and get rid of these idiots. Socialism, I did not serve my country for that to happen, and I'm tired. I love Ventura, California. I love it out there. I miss it, but I live in triple the house I could afford out there, and it doesn't make sense. None of it makes any sense. But I believe that there is a red wave in California. I believe that they have gone so far left that we've heard it a million times during this election. They've left their usual Democrats behind, and the right is staying pretty much in the center or going a little left and picking them up. I would hope. I'm praying. I think California, from San Diego to, I'll say, Lompoc, if they would get it together out there as their RNC should, I think that with doing the right thing and bringing it back to the idea of the Reagan years in the big tent, instead of inclusive, the next man up type thing, and you got to do your dues with the Republican Party, we have to get rid of that mentality countrywide, or we are, as a party in ourselves, are going to lose our way. That's what I fight right here in Reed County.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a point on top of that. That's where I think that Trump is really really mastered this election, or this electioneering, I guess I would call it, because back in 2012 or right after the election, Bill Whittle was talking about how Mitt Romney writing off the 47% or whatever he said, and Bill Whittle said that you need to go and you need to fight for every single vote, not just your liberal, your strongholds in like what Orange County was in California. You have to go into every space and say, like, this is why my vision is going to be better for you. And so when it comes down to opportunity zones for the Trump administration, him pairing with Tim Scott, I mean, look how that's how the minority community has looked on Trump for that. Like, what else do we have to lose? He's doing stuff for us. The criminal justice reform was a huge thing for us, and he seems like he actually cares. And I mean, also, it's not like the guy parses his thoughts. So
me or Trump?
Is,
Either or.
Well,
potato.
Like you too.
I like it.
Yeah. but it just seems like with all the practiced politicians we've had in the last ever, it seems like having a guy that, while he doesn't say the best stuff on Twitter, I'd rather go with his actions, and his actions are pretty dang good. I mean,
no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, like what? Yesterday we had a lesson in foreign policy of, oh, you want $1 million ransom? Well, here's some 5.56 to the face.
and well, yeah. By the way, the United States Navy, hoorah!
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
So, the thing I see as like the biggest lead into this election for Trump, like the polls were crazy there after that first debate. Like there were double-digit spread between Biden and Trump, with Biden like in the leads and winning. And granted, take polls for whatever you want to take them as, I guess. I don't know. It's a reading that's out there or whatever. Yeah. Kind of crap, but I don't know. It's something you can kind of look at.
Like a poll this morning at 9:00.
Yeah, exactly. But
what was epic, dog?
Struck me as super important or super relegating. Look at sports like football and basketball and how much they've been kowtowing to the political left. And look at how their ratings have just dropped. Like their viewership has just dropped. It's just tanks, man. And so all these people that have switched over to this other side, I mean, there has to be a movement to see viewer ratings drop that low. It's just crazy. And it's not just certain areas. It's all around. I mean, it's nuts, man. I think they're killing themselves.
I think we're both killing ourselves. This is why I bring up parties. I mean, I'm so the Republican Party makes me really upset because I'm a big fan. I mean, they called me the thug, and I've owned it. I remember when they said that the Republican Party is the party of the old white guy. It is. Let's stop it. Why do Republicans care what gays do? I want gays to be happy. Pursuit of happiness, big part of our whole thing here. Leave it alone. Our Republican Party needs to recognize this young group of people that are sitting here, that we have a different ideological understanding of what the Republican Party is. And that's what really drives me crazy, is that we try to get a seat at that table. You better have 500 million viewers and maybe listen to you.
This draws me to another question. And it's something that I've been pondering a lot recently, like, and I kind of want to hear you guys' thoughts on this. Like, what is freedom? Like, freedom is the freeness from bondage, like to not be captivated by somebody else or something like that. But that has a really, like, you're ex-military, you fought for freedom. Like, what does that mean to you? Like, what is freedom? Like, why is it so important? Why do we care? Why does politics even matter? Like, what is freedom?
You asked way on the military side, you brought up my military service. And me, I've seen freedom, and what it is foreign people that can't speak my language wearing rags, having like they just won the Super Bowl because we drove through their town, watching little kids run up and hug me, and they don't know my name, they don't know anything. That's freedom, or the thought of freedom and what it feels like. And I've seen it, it's brought me to tears. Mm-hmm. And that's my idea of freedom. Freedom, we can break it down, is the highway system is a socialist thing. Shut up. It's just shut up. That's just stupid. You know, we have every aspect of our life. It's like saying, well, you know, ramen noodles are Chinese. Well, maybe they're a little Japanese. I don't know. You know, it's the same kind of thing. We like to pigeonhole and put everything in a box. I hate boxes. I hate it. And the thing is freedom is the idea of having that pursuit of happiness and being able to get there on your own.
And that's kind of like, maybe Jeff, you can kind of tune in on this. So like from a religious standpoint, we talk about like the freedom from the bondage of sin, and like something that keeps you down or holds you back or brings out kind of the worst of yourself, right? So when we as Christians say that we're set free by Christ, we're allowed to like move forward into the world with a new set of eyes to be able to speak what we want, but to promulgate a better society for us all. And it's the ability to take your neighbor who is downtrodden, who was ran over, who maybe didn't have, who didn't take the opportunity when it was granted to him, saw his mistake, and now he needs that helping hand to bring him back up. Freedom is the ability to grab your neighbor by the hand and be like, come on, bud, we're doing this. We're in this together. We're in the same country. We are brothers and sisters in this nation. I see it as a marriage. The left and the right, we're always going to be here, right? We live in the same country. We hate each other. We have to get along. And if we fight for this country for the point of making the other side the loser, then you have to live with the loser your entire life. Yeah. And that's where I think like having the conversation and bringing us all together, though we don't agree. I'm not saying we have to agree with each other, because that kills what you stand for. Because if you agree with everybody all the time, that makes you into a pansy. And it allows you to stand your point and to build better ideas together as a nation, rather than trying to throw the other person in the dirt. And Jeff, I don't know, what are your thoughts on that, man?
Yeah, well, I feel like at a certain point, like looking at where we are right now, we are so polarized. We're so like you've got the people that firmly believe in freedom and liberty, and then you got the people that firmly believe in groupthink and you can't be an individual and all that kind of stuff. And I think at a certain point, I don't know if we can actually coexist with the way that things are, because we have two totally different visions for America. And I think that's the danger where we're at before. It used to be Republican and Democrat. There wasn't that much of a difference. I remember back with McCain versus Obama, and even Mitt Romney versus Obama, there wasn't that much of a difference. I remember thinking,
well, McCain's a Democrat, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you're looking at it, you're like, okay, so it's slightly more like slightly. It wouldn't have really changed a whole lot, I think. But I think now we're literally looking at where it's like it's extremes in either way. And I think kind of touching on like the religious aspect and the Christian aspect, I think, and this gets me in trouble with the Christian side of things, as I'm talking to, even friends and things like that, where I think that part of the problem with the evangelical movement is we get so wrapped up in the gay marriage debate. Yeah.
Can you explain what that is? Because if I don't understand exactly what that is, I'm sure there's a lot of other people that don't. Could you explain that?
Sure, with like the gay marriage debate and all that kind of stuff.
No, I don't even know what that word you said was. Evangelical.
Oh, evangelical.
Yeah.
So that would be pretty much mainstream Christianity, Protestant, things like that. So that would be like the majority of like the non-denominational churches, Baptists, things like that.
Is mainstream religion, okay. Whatever.
Right. Hey,
us dirty papists don't have a plate at the dinner. I get it.
Yeah. It's how we roll over here at the GK. But I think like looking at the landscape of like Christianity, I think a lot of times with the conservative Christian movement, I think a lot of times we get wrapped up in a lot of our extreme moral, trying to legislate morality. And I think that there's a danger in that to a certain degree, especially with where we are right now, where, okay, let's focus on the things that we can actually accomplish. Like right now, a lot of Christians right now, I know, and I've spoken with them, they're not going to vote for Donald Trump because he's accepting to the gay community, right? And so for them, they're like, I can't vote for somebody that supports gay marriage. And I'm looking at it from more of maybe a more pragmatic standpoint of, why do we care about something that we can't change? Like literally, even if every single evangelical voter came out and voted, you're not going to ban gay marriage. So why do we even care about that? Let's focus on the things that we agree on. The things that we agree on, I think, are like, even if you're dealing with the abortion issue, I think the majority of Americans agree the last trimester abortions, we should probably ban those. Those are probably a bad thing, you know. And I think that goes Democrat, Republican, all that kind of stuff. But instead, we always jump directly to all abortions everywhere. And it's like, to me, we got to take baby steps. And I think that that's where we kind of Chad, we talked to your point of having a wider tent within the Republican Party. If we can unify around the Constitution, if we can unify around our freedom and our liberty, I think that number one, we got to get back to that. So instead of jumping the gun and getting ahead and getting to all these little debates that divide us even within the Republican Party, let's save our country first, get back to where we should be, and then we can kind of progressively move forward and have those debates and discussions and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like to a certain degree, we're kind of jumping the gun a little bit.
But see, my biggest thing is,
yeah,
he's a smart guy. But the one thing that I was talking about was, you know, we talk about how we need to focus on, you know, not losing the country and all that, you know, let's hoorah, shoot them up. I'm that guy. But what we were just saying is that you know, we get away from the gay thing. Okay, let's worry about the things that we can understand with one another, make it a big tent. But the problem is what the left has is that you're not allowing me in the big tent because you're not letting me have a seat at the table. I don't care who you want to sleep with. I even tell that to politicians. Maybe on the front page news, I'm not going to put it there. I don't give a damn if you want to marry your Corvette. But you need to understand that the Bill of Rights is something that's important, and so is the Constitution. And I'll die with this in my hand. Know that. Because I'm not going to play this game. And that's where we have lost our idea. I watch them lift up these politicians like they're some kind of friggin' rock star, and they're idiots. They're an empty suit that we need to go up and say exactly what Jerry Wayne said. You work for me.
Yeah.
Right, fired up. My bad.
Actually,
And then I'll let you go, Jerry. But it's we're not electing a pastor. We're electing a president. Get it together.
Jesus are straight.
You want to go out there and you want to preach? Elect a president that allows you to talk. He doesn't want. He's not going to allow. You know, he's not going to have all the same viewpoints you do. I mean, most politicians. I mean, Trump's been in business, but most politicians have been in politics forever. Everybody's going to have. When you get down to the nitty gritty, everybody's going to disagree on everything. Elect somebody that allows you to talk. Go ahead.
Real quick, let me just say this, Jerry, and then you can take it off. I feel like this conversation and this podcast is going to get us kicked out of Christianity. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
maybe I've been baptized.
Maybe I can bring it back.
They did the splish splash. I'm golden.
So, like last time we had a interview, we really got into some really deep stuff because I think that stems from the questions that you ask. And actually, it's probably the deepest interview I've had. That's something I want to bring over to like a Joe Rogan interview. Is great. So you asked like how we feel, what freedom really is. And I think I have a different feeling of that from a lot of other people. So first of all, I'm going to start this off with a question, and then I'm going to carry on with what I want to say. But are we more free now or less free than we were as a nation? Okay. Excuse me, not even as a nation, as an individual. Let's say that as an individual from when we actually got our independence. Like let's say from a government entity, are we more or less free from that?
Are you saying as our independence, like
no, as an independent person? Yes, since we have
Okay.
independence as a country, that we said, hey, this is a solemn nation. You know that this is we the people, and from that point on, like as an individual, do you feel as if that we have had more rights or less rights since then? Now we could go ahead and talk about, you know, like the civil rights movement and all that stuff. Let's just try to keep it to where like how people were when they actually first had it to now. You know what I'm saying?
And
Like,
I think
we have things we have to change.
I think that comes back. So what's your definition of freedom?
Okay, so that's what point I wanted to make. Okay, because I feel as if we are significantly less free than we were back then, and I think that what my definition of freedom is that you can actually act out your inner being as long as it doesn't cause harm to somebody else. And I think that we are not able to do that anymore. We have a lot of victimless crimes that are actually being brought to fruition. You know, like now, if you're speeding, although it's a violation, you're pulled over and sometimes if you have so many, you're arrested. And I don't think that that's right. It's a victimless crime, so therefore it's not a crime and that's unconstitutional. So there's a lot of things like don't get me wrong, I stand with the police of what's happening right now, but I also believe that police have had a lot of power for a very long time, and I think that not everyone, but a lot of police have actually abused that power as well. And I don't think that they deserve what they're getting now, but I do think that there needs to be some some definite changes when it comes to that. Now that also stems from the government as in itself. That's all stems from the government on down. But that's the way that we look at as a society. It's the president that did it, then the Senate, then it's the House, and all that. No, it's not them. It's the individual. The individual has lost respect as a nation. We are not looking into our inner being now to see what's actually the best thing for us to do. We're on TikTok, we're on Twitter, we're trying to get quick gratification for what we're doing. We're not actually listening to what our soul or what our consciousness is telling us what to do. And that right there is why we're in this predicament today, is because we're not listening to our inner consciousness.
And I think that's true. And I think we as Americans have given that up because the freedom scares us. If you have a bunch of freedom to decide whatever it is you want to do, that's scary. There's a bunch of different options under which you could do. Like we're live right now, right? Over a bunch of people. We're wearing clothes. That's not something that I laid out that we have to do, but it was a choice to do together, right?
Gary's never letting me come on again.
But when people are afraid to make that choice to implement their morality or what they see as right and wrong into freedom because they don't want to take responsibility for the actions in which they have. We see that with abortion and divorce for the most part, right? Now, with abortion, you made that conscious decision to sleep with that gal.
That's right.
Now you have a child. Now it's time to own up. Now it's time to take responsibility.
There's no self-responsibility anymore. Yes, right.
Now,
baby boomers.
Right. I kind of want to.
I'm writing a book about it. It's my theory, man. This is all because of the baby boomers.
Yeah,
the summer of love is killing us right now.
Yeah. I want to twist the table.
Reagan said it takes one generation to go to socialism. We have 2 generations voting right now, and where are we at?
Yep. Right. A curious thought that has been going through me. So, unions in the past have been more so democratic for the most point. And Rob, I want to correlate this with you because, and if you don't want to answer, I totally understand because you're kind of like our secret ninja in here.
Secret ninja?
You went to university for law school, and that's an extremely education is an extremely democratic area. So
Esquire.
Where do you guys? I kind of want to pit you two together because how do you combat that? In that situation, how do you got to do your job? You keep your mouth shut and keep moving forward, or do you when do you decide truth needs to be shown to light?
So, as Josh said, I go to law school up here in the Midwest. I don't it's the reason why he says I'm kind of a secret ninja is because I don't want to be known in my campus because of campus bias, and it is very real. My con law class is freaking awful. But recently I have been kind of. I used to have that Ben Shapiro kind of mentality, which was keep your head down, talk like a communist, and then write like a communist, and then just try and keep it even in class. Just try and keep your head down, get out of law school, earn money, shove it back down the left's throat when you get out. But at some point, at some point during this last semester, I've just been I've been so down just because you can see the people around you start thinking oh yeah, that's a good idea. And it's just that inward screaming, no, it's really not. I don't know how you're shaking, nodding your head about the Roe v. Wade framework or the, what is that? Oh, the Planned Parenthood versus Casey framework. It's awful.
Do you do that because you fear for your safety?
No, they can come and try and find me.
Okay. That's what I've got to understand because I don't buy into none of that. Please understand it, Esquire. I'm all about it. But the thing with it for me is I my head would explode. And that's why my show's called I'm Fired Up. That's why we do what we do. I just let it fly. The best part, you know what freedom is a broke fireman like me that sits behind a radio microphone and loses his ever-loving mind for 2 hours and lets it fly. That's what I feel. And I'm telling you, it is the most euphoric thing you will ever feel. And I actually feel sorry for you that you're in that situation. And I want to kind of be like that anti-bully, like goes to school with you and be like, let's handle this. I got you. And just run my mouth so you don't get it. Because that's who I am. I have realized that in fighting for my country, being a firefighter, fighting for my community, that at the end of the day, all we have is this one chance. We all have this one chance in this makeup of our matter and who we are in blood and guts. And I've watched people die around me, and they didn't have that chance. And if it's that hurtful to that it's something that bothers you this much physically, and it's brought you down, like you said, then it's wrong. I believe in what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And by God, let it fly and be that American. I know that sounds crazy. That's why I carry a gun. I'm okay with it. I'll fight you in the ditch, because even if you beat me up, I stood for something. That's just where it drives me nuts being in your situation.
And so, first of all, firefighter brother, nice.
Hoorah. I love it.
I'm a firefighter, so like I used to be one back where Josh and I met. But just gotta note that, gotta stick together. But that's why. But to your point, that's why this semester I'm really trying to work with Turning Point USA, and trying to get a chapter on campus. I know that we just got a founding chapter for Young Americans for Freedom that's starting up here pretty quick. And like that's why I'm just like I'm trying to get this presence on campus, because it's baby steps, but they're the steps that need to get taken. There need to be taken. When it comes down to the law aspect of it, I'm just like you flip to the back of the case so you can see the dissents, and then you flip to the front of the case and you read it through the dissent, the majority opinion through the dissent's eyes. And like, so as much as everyone loves Scalia, and the guy was a great writer, just like amazing. Clarence Thomas is the best justice on the court, because he gives no crap. Like he was in the Louisiana abortion case that came up last term. He pretty much said in his dissent that stare decisis, which is like the law god that we all sit under, which is precedent rules, and the longer the precedent's been precedent, then the more like deference is given to it. And he goes, no, bad law is bad law, and if it's bad law, it shouldn't be here. And like there are professors that were just no. I'm like, yeah, no, that's, and I'm sitting there going, yeah, it needs to be that. But the reason, like, you keep your head down, you try and keep your head down a little bit during class, because you're just trying to figure out what you have to write on an exam to make the professor happy. So, but past that, I mean, I try and right now in the age of COVID, there's not exactly a whole bunch of like meetings together that people do, because we're all online. So like, there's not really a whole bunch of talking I can do with my classmates, but I am taking like a very much a Sun Tzu approach to my beliefs, which is you have to pick your battles. Yeah, like you have to, like, there's conservatives in our class, and you know, I love the fired up, and I'm with them, but they need to know which battles they need to be fighting and which ones they just need to hold back. Right. And like, because you can make a high quality rebuke to certain cases and change people's minds, and have people actually see, not even like, you don't even have to change someone's mind in class, just planting that seed in their brain, that can work wonders. Right. I have a First Amendment class that it is an absolute bloodbath every single day. And that's
odd that you say that. It's a First Amendment class. Everybody should just be able to say what the hell they want.
Well,
everybody gets to say what they want.
A lot of cussing.
You have bloodbath. Trust me.
And like, but it's just like, you walk in, it's a war, and the professor, she goes like, oh, people cry in this class. Like, if you need to leave the room, like, please do. I mean, we're like, whoo, This is the class I want to be
Are
in.
you guys allowed to have guests?
Yeah, can we come?
I really want to infiltrate this class. Can I just like, I feel like we should all just kind of come on and, you know.
I'll get a sponsor. I'll get a bus.
Jeff, I know you got to be taken off here really soon, and then I want to circle back because I do want to see how Jerry Wayne ended up flipping the unions, but I know you got to take off. And we had Tamara wrote up this question: if a country is formed on Christian values, how can you deviate from that? And I want to get your take on that.
Well, I don't think that we should necessarily like deviate from that, but there's certain specific general principles that came with the founding of our country, and again that comes back to freedom and liberty. We have personal responsibility. We have the ability to make our own decisions. We have the ability to speak our mind without anybody else telling us otherwise. And I think even going back to the comparison between Christianity and the founding of our country, a lot of that there is a direct reflection of our faith in Christ and our relationship with God in the way that our founding fathers established everything, right? And so I think that one of those examples is our ability to decide between right and wrong. We have, just in the same way we have the ability to decide to become a Christian or not be a Christian, do what we want with our lives, and also choose to be either obedient to Christ or not, in the same way that we can choose whichever pathway we want to go. I think for me, a lot of this goes taking this back to the founding of our country. We have this freedom and we have this liberty that people, when you're not a Christian, or I think a lot of times, especially when you're on the left and it's a very godless ideology, I think it's very easy to take the morals out of everything. There is no morals on the left. Look at the riots, look at the looting, look at the chaos that they justify this, because they are actually pushing for a godless society with no morals. If you take God out of society, there literally is no morals, because who creates morality? We're just a bunch of animals that came through evolution, through the whole process. We're nothing more than a bunch of monkeys running around that we just happen to have technology. That's really what sets us apart from the animal world, as opposed to having this idea of morality where we are responsible. And I think that really comes back to this idea of what is conservatism, I think, as well. Being conservatives is not anything that is saying we're not going to help the poor. We're not going to fight against racism. We're not going to do that. It's that we don't believe that it's the government's responsibility to do a lot of these things. You and I, as individuals, like, I'll go fight racism all day. I'll go help the homeless all day. I'll go do all that kind of stuff all day long. I just don't think that Joe Biden or Donald Trump or anybody like that, I don't think that that's their responsibility. I think it's get the government out of the way, give the responsibility back to the individuals, allow me to make up my own mind. If you look at history, you look at earlier American history, towns used to help each other. The hub of the town was the church, and if there was somebody who was poor, they lost their job, their farm burned down, whatever it was, the community came together. They came together oftentimes through the church, and they helped everybody. You didn't need the government to come in and provide all the resources and have all the answers and all that kind of stuff. It was the goodness of people's hearts. You don't have that anymore. And I think a lot of that is going back to the early 1900s. They established it to where they were training us and reinforcing us to rely on the government. And it was kept being this incremental step by step. It's this brainwashing. It's this, once you accept one aspect, then it's easy to go on to the next step. And I think that if we can get back to this idea of get the government out of the way, allow you and I to make up our own minds on how to help each other, make it more community-based. And again, this is where even I get in trouble with a lot of conservatives. Stop relying on big corporations for jobs. Like, stop relying in the same way that we need to stop relying on big government for handouts and jobs and all that kind of stuff. We should be going back to small business. Allow individuals to take care of themselves. Allow individuals to provide for themselves. That's what the founding fathers originally intended for us from the beginning. So a lot of this is, there's a lot to unpack there, but I think if we can get back to the principles from our founding fathers, which was this ideal system of freedom and liberty and personal responsibility, I mean, that is the true to saving our country.
Right. Jeff, I want to talk to you about that. You made some really solid points there, man. And I think that a big thing that we're looking at as a country is that, first of all, who is God? A lot of people don't know who God actually is. They think it's a big man with a beard in the sky. Like, that's a figure of your imagination. That couldn't be further than the truth. I think that's a really big problem that we're dealing with right now. But you say like we have to get the big politics out of the way. So again, we're looking at a physical thing within this. I'm sure I talked about this also. Well, within this three-dimensional plane of reality. Okay, but really what I think that what it stems down to, because I like to get everything down to the base root of what we're actually dealing with. And I think what we're dealing with is actually you have to get the ego out of the way. If you get the ego out of the way, you can be selfless, and then you can transpire through government through that, because government is nothing but a reflection of the united consciousness of the people within the United States. We're getting exactly what we deserve because people have turned off their inner being, right? So like if you are not going to let your consciousness flow, then your ego's in the way. And that's like what I had the altercation with Joe Biden. I had to get my ego out of the side and say, the people around me when I was in that altercation, they weren't on my side. A ton of people told me not to do it. You're going to look like a jackass. I don't know if I can cuss on this, sorry. You're going to look like a jackbutt and all that stuff. And everything on the outside that was going to hurt my ego told me not to do it. But I knew from the inside that that's something that I had to do. There's an opportunity that I had, and that's why I went for that. And I'm not saying that everybody has to go out there and talk crap to Joe Biden. But what I am saying is that you have to listen to that inner being, or else, because this really strives from the inner individual, and we can't look at an outside source for an answer.
How did that change your work life, dude? Like, I couldn't imagine, like I live in a really Republican state. Like, everybody's pretty conservative for the most part. I mean, you have your onesies, twosies, right? So I can speak my mind all I want all day. But then, like, dude, if I wanted to work with like a bunch of lefties and I said something that made people upset, and now I got to bring, like fisticuffs to work, and stuff like that. Like, what was your work life like after that?
Well, see, that's just that. Like, so that's a good question. I'll answer that in just a moment. So we're looking at a short-term thing and then a long-term thing. And I just want to let everybody else out there know, whether you're religious or not. And I've been doing a lot of studying, and I'm of no denomination myself, but I study all this stuff. And as long as you listen to your inner being, that little voice inside of your head, or your gut, if you will, grace will be bestowed upon you for every step that you take in life. It may feel like in the short term that it's a bad thing, but in a long run, good things will happen to you if you keep listening to that voice. So in the short term, I was like, this sucks. I'm going to get blackballed. They're going to fire me, all that stuff, right? When I left that moment, nobody liked me except my very close friends. Nobody liked me at all. I actually left work for 2 days because I feared for my life. So it wasn't good at all. And then again, that little voice says, you stood up once, you got to do it again. And I went back to work that Friday, and I just took it head on. I had a very big argument with an individual amongst around, 50 people that were around me. And it was actually a guy I looked up to when I was an apprentice. And I just said, I'm not going to do this. And I'm going to stand up for what I believe in, regardless of what the union thinks. And at that point on, I turned into a celebrity.
Man, that's
at work, actually.
So has it turned around?
Oh yeah. They don't get me wrong. There's these people that just love to hate, and actually now I look at this demographic. Mind you, majority of the people are for me. Like the vast majority are for me across the nation. But there are people that they just love to hate. And these are people that are egotistical within themselves. Like they can't get that egotistical barrier down from themselves to actually open their eyes and be wrong about something.
But if I can hop in here really quick, I think that there's this big aspect that goes along, and this probably is going as well within the unions as it is within minority communities and virtually every community out there, is this groupthink mentality, and it's kind of this manipulation over the individuals. And what I'm guessing, again, this is just me talking from the outside, but like looking in, and Jerry, you and I have had some conversations and talking a lot about a lot of that kind of stuff. I think there's a lot of projection that goes on in our country from leaders of different groups, where we split everybody apart, and you're supposed to be in this group. And if you're in this group, you have to think, act, look, talk, vote a certain way. And I think that that's kind of the danger that we're at right here in America too, is even look at just recently we had Lil Wayne came out talking pro-Trump. You had 50 Cent talking pro-Trump. You've got Kanye West that has been pro-Trump. As soon as they come out immediately, like I saw Lil Wayne the other day, as soon as he came out and posted that picture with Donald Trump, it was He's an Uncle Tom. He just wants to be white. He's this, that, and the other thing. It's their form of manipulation to try to rein him back in and think that the way that they want to think. And I think that to a certain degree as well, I think that can go in any community. I think that happens in conservatism. It happens within Christianity. It happens within all these different groups. If we can allow people to have differences of opinion, be a bunch of individuals, we can discuss, debate. I have a lot more fun debating with people that I disagree with than I do talking to people that I agree with. No offense to anybody here, but I have a lot more fun picking fights with people that I disagree with. But that's what America should be like. But because of this groupthink, it's like we can't. It's like society won't allow that to happen.
Right. I actually have a really important point to make about that before I forget. Actually. Yeah. So what it is like to stem a personality, how you develop your personality. That's why I love Combiner shows. I actually talk about other things than just politics. But how you stem from your personality is what you do is you are who you surround yourself with. Yes. Okay. So the reason why that is that you pick up mannerisms around those people. Like if we were all to hang out together, you're going to say things that they're catchphrases, if you will, that happen. Or if you hang out with a bunch of smokers, you're typically going to start smoking. So what we're witnessing right now is a shift in technology. So I remember this growing up. Through my childhood, we watched TV all the time. It was almost, well, it was a negative thing. And it was like in front of a meal, pick up things. And I picked up mannerisms from TV shows. You know, I watched Friends or The Simpsons or whatever. I ended up acting like those characters in the show. And that's what actually made me figure out what was actually happening here. So now we have all of these TV like reality shows and these sitcoms and stuff. And now this mainstream media or the mainstream television programming can instill these personalities into these things. And when people are watching them, they then become like those people. So they're actually transforming people's consciousness because of what they're actually watching. And that is like, we can argue that all day, but that is an absolute truth.
Now, I want to touch on that a little bit and something else that you said, because I think they mesh together so well. The left is a selfish point of view, and I can already see the hate mail coming for this, mainly because think of all the policies that they're pushing. They all have to do with serving yourself, right? Like you look at abortion, it's for myself so that I don't have to take responsibility. Or it's for, like I want to take away student loans. I don't want to pay for my student loan for going to college. That's a responsibility that I took on. I signed documents to take on that loan. And now I don't want to take responsibility for paying it back.
But I believe they were manipulated at the same time.
Right.
They were 18 years old, but they were told since childhood to go to college.
You are owed the world. And I think that backs up. And I don't believe they did it on purpose, but I think they did it on accident. My great grandfather came to the United States, right? So he came to the United States because he wanted to make life better for my grandfather. My grandfather worked his butt off in a farm. He brought rural water into a small town because he wanted the small town to have running water. He wanted his daughter to have running water within that small town, right? So he wanted to make life better for his daughter. And same with my other grandfather for his son. Okay. Now, my father worked his butt off. Geez, I remember growing up, like when I was really young, I didn't really see my father a whole lot. He was gone all the time because he was working his butt off. Why? Because he wanted to make life better for me. Now my life is good. I mean, I got a great job, and I worked my butt off because for my kids, I want it to be better. But the thing is what was instilled in me is my dad made me, rake the leaves, take care of the house, do my chores, like we lived on kind of a farm kind of growing up until I moved into a decent city, and I had to take care, I had a list of chores to do. My dad instilled in me a work ethic to appreciate what it was that I did. Now, you leave that out of the equation, and if I were a kid that was growing up that my father told me, who made life better for me so that I wasn't entitled to all this stuff, and I just stay out in my bathroom sat in my bathroom, that's a weird place. Sat in my bedroom and I played video games all day, or I just didn't do anything throughout my entire life, and I was just lazy, still live in my mom's basement or something. I feel like I'm entitled to that because I don't know any different. I don't know the heart, the blood on my father's hands. I don't know the calluses that my grandfather went through to give me that position. We forget, I think the saying is hard times create hard men, and hard men create good times. and good times create weak men. My generation and the generation below me, if you can believe it, is a weak man. And
I can believe it.
boy, it's crazy that we've given up so much freedom because we want things and we don't want to have to work for it. Rob,
there's no sacrifice. You're not going to sacrifice anything.
Right.
That's the reason why these masks are still happening right now, because people aren't willing to sacrifice checks at the store because they want to wear that mask. They want to go get detergent because they can't do without. That's what's happening right now. Nobody's willing to self-sacrifice.
Yeah, and let me just say this, and then I got to roll, right? But the one thing I want to say, talking about like what you're talking about, Shu, here is to kind of bring this back for me, kind of like looking big picture. Is I think we've got a lot of work that we have to do as conservatives and also as Christians as well. We almost have to figure out how do we deprogram people, because we got to remember, education system has been run by the leftists for decades, right? Same thing with the entertainment industry, same thing with the media industry. And what we've seen is people are being brainwashed from a very young age to have this kind of mentality. When you think, and in our last book that we actually put out called Social Injustice, the chapter that I wrote on was on income inequality. And one of the things one of my main points in that chapter was really dealing with this idea that the problem with America right now is we are training up children from a young age to be employees and to obey their masters, or in the sense their teacher or the government, right? It's being constantly reinforced throughout childhood, growing up. You're not taught to think outside the box. You're not taught to be an entrepreneur. You are taught to say yes, and here's the correct answers, and you're taught to be an employee, right? And I think that begins this mentality of now you're entitled to something. You're entitled to a job. You're entitled to income. You're entitled to a good grade as long as you put in the effort. Everybody gets a trophy, all this kind of stuff. At a certain point, we've got our work cut out for us because we have to deprogram, we have to de-brainwash society and the individuals. And I think for me, one of the biggest successes that I've had with really kind of going down this route is take the personalities out of politics. Don't make the issue about Donald Trump. Don't make the issue about Joe Biden, because people already have their minds made up, and a lot of it, all it has to do with the Democrats, it's Donald Trump is mean. With the Republicans, it's Joe Biden has dementia. You're not going to change anybody's mind on that. But if you can take the personalities out of it and you bring it back to the issues, whether it's illegal immigration, I've gotten through to a lot of lefties simply by making an argument that the most compassionate thing that we can do for the illegal immigrants is to shut down the border and take the control and the power away from the cartels who are literally raping women, who are doing sex trafficking and funneling drugs and abusing these people for money. If we could shut down the border, that's the most compassionate thing that we can do for people. But I can't make that argument while talking about Donald Trump. So I think that one of the things that we have to do is we really have to deprogram, de-brainwash people, and get people to actually think through the repercussions of what they believe. And if we can take away the party affiliation, we can take away the personalities involved, I think that's going to be the most effective way to do it.
That's a very solid point. And it actually comes down to my organization that I have coming up with the Patriots of America, which it's a legal name now. And I'm going to be having people hopefully donate. It's going to be a grassroots organization where we take these kids and actually teach them how to be individuals, and a lot more than that, but actually just to make it to where they can rely on themselves and nobody else, and they can take that stance to college with them.
That's awesome.
Very cool. Okay, so hey guys, I'm gonna run. It was a blast, Jerry. It's always awesome seeing you.
Heck yeah, man.
Take it easy, Jeff. It was great to have you on. You take care, man.
Thanks so much. Have fun for the rest of the show.
Take care, man. Nice meeting you.
Thanks, man.
Tell me my life.
I just real quick, I thought that was really interesting how you guys, but I'm big on dumbing it down. Again, that's why
Chad is a foot soldier that he has the core beliefs just like we do, except he takes it right to their face. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, very literal.
Right to the grill.
And Rob, while we're in this topic, I wanted to get to the hard work, because dude, you lived with me forever, the time that you were trying to get into law school. I mean, can you just run us through this through your crazy story on how you tried to get into law school and the work that you put into it. Because honestly, like when I saw you try and try, and you just never gave up, even when stuff got really, really hard, you just put your head down and went. Like, what was that journey like for you, man?
So I was working not in the oil field. I did that later. But I worked. I loaded rail cars with oil, and I just decided like this isn't me. I like kind of what Jerry's talking about. I believe that God lives in your gut, and you just listen to that voice and that saying like you're not going to do this in your life, and you've had a higher calling for a while now. You just haven't decided to take it. So we were working 4 days on, 4 days off, and I decided to go get an LSAT test book and start working my way through that. So I'd be loading rail cars and then doing flashcards, and it was just back and forth in between that. And so one particular weekend, I was like, oh, well, I'll sign up for the LSAT. Went over and took it. I didn't get the best score, but it's good. It was good enough apparently. So I decided to like, okay, well, I'll apply here coming up quick, but I don't know, the financial situation wasn't the best, and my gut was telling me, nope, not your time. Just try and build yourself up and try and get on a good foot, which is good because at that point, if I would have graduated, if I would have gone in, I would have graduated in the right when COVID was heading into its heyday and nobody was hiring. So God is good. So I just like, okay, so the first bust hit, the first oil bust hit, and I said like, okay, so what am I gonna do? Well, I started applying everywhere I could, and I started doing working, not working, but doing extra night duties over at the fire department, and I just did everything I could to just kind of keep my head above water, and I got on with a wireline company. And if you want to know about hard work, go in the oil field. It'll teach you quick. And the rule when we were on our first shift was, unless the bone's sticking out or you can't stop the bleeding, you are coming to work.
Oh.
So it was doing that. It was just grimy work, but like you just did it because you're going to get paid. You're going to get paid well, and it just felt good doing good hard work. And so I did that for a little while, and then I just said, okay, well, I'm going to start applying to law schools. When I was applying to law school, I met my wife. Decided to move to another town to get closer to law school I wanted to go to, and applied first, got in, and then that's when the real work started. I mean, like working with your hands is great, and I loved it. Oh man, law school work is different. I mean, it's different. Like,
So
but the thing is that if I didn't have that voice in me that just said keep going, keep going, keep going, I probably wouldn't have gotten to where I am right now. I probably wouldn't have gotten to where I am in law school. But the biggest thing is that like you just gotta you just have to listen to that voice in your head that says, I can be this person, or I can do this thing, and you just gotta be able to take everything that comes at you and just say, yeah, that might suck, but I'm gonna keep on pushing, and there's not a person alive that's gonna be able to stop me. I don't care if they look like Jerry. But there's like no one's gonna be able to push me through.
Right. But that's all right. That's what it comes down to, discipline. You know, you have to discipline yourself to actually listen to that inner voice and not take that quick satisfaction, you know. And actually, one of my heroes, actually my actual hero, Jordan Peterson, speaks about that in his book, 12 Rules for Life. And he says, you know, we don't know the limits of somebody actually listening to inner voice on a consistent basis. You know, we don't know somebody that's done it here and there and they become successful. But what if you were to actually listen to it on a consistent basis, which I believe that's the story of Jesus Christ, actually. because that's how perfect, Jesus was. But, I do think that we're seeing somebody that's doing that at a very high level right now, and that's actually Elon Musk. Elon Musk is performing at a very high level, doing great things for mankind that a lot of people do not understand what he's doing. It's like there's all this information coming out here about politics and stuff, but this man is literally changing the world right before our eyes, and nobody knows about it.
Yeah.
Yep. And one other thing I just watched. I recommend, so I love Clarence. I'm a Clarence Thomas fanboy, as I've said before.
The hell you say?
Yeah. So there was a documentary that he did on on PBS or something like that. It's probably the only good thing that PBS has done in the last 30 years. But they did a documentary with him, and he said, one of the things that he said that really hit me hard was during his awful confirmation hearings, where he was just taken down in the mud and just rolled around he said to that committee, he goes what would have you would you rescind your confirmation? Would you rescind your nomination? He goes, no, there is no force on this planet that will make me back out. Not because I want this, because no one will beat me.
Yeah.
And it was just to the U.S. Senate, he said that. And I think that if a lot of people have that kind of mentality of just yeah, you can come up against me, but you're not going to beat me. Or if sort of how everyone compares LeBron and Jordan these days. And I don't think LeBron is better than Jordan, because I think that Jordan, when he would walk onto a court, there were two options. One, he was going to beat you, or two, he was going to die. And that's it. You have to go into those fights. If you know that's a fight that's worth fighting, you have to go in saying, they're either going to drag me out of here, or I'm walking over somebody.
Right.
Metaphorically or physically.
We're talking about this on how it's what we need to be. I'm blown away because I don't know a way to live any other way.
See, and that's
to hear these fights and these things that you're talking about, I'm sitting here going, we need to get there. I mean, I maybe that's why I lose my mind on my shows, because I feel that that's the way I was raised.
Right.
How? Or that's kind of what I wanted to lead into, Chad, is you joined the military. Why? Why do you have?
I didn't want to grow up in Illinois.
Part important. Why are you so fired up? Why? Baywatch.
Yep. I joined the Navy. I wanted to go to California, and I wanted to see them Brazilian bikini things.
They get you when you're young, it seems like.
Hey, you surrounded by corn and beans and doing all that, at the end of the day, that world is very small. And I always had this pull to want to see the world. My father was very good about teaching me about history. And, when I would take a poll every morning at 9:00, I would go in there and read the National Geographic. That's where, I learned about the world. My father showed me there was another world. And it was so super important for me. How was I going to get that done? I took the easy way out and said, hey, man, I like the water. I'll go to the Navy. And then I said my goal was to get to California. By doing that, they said you had to be number one in your class. I'm on it. And that's what I did. I'm number one in my class. I joined a very, very special group of military, special forces in the Seabees. And I went out there, and that was the beginning of my adult on who I am, because who I was as a youth and who I am now are the same, but very different. And when I hear what you guys are saying, as far as, Michael Jordan, you're right, win or die. I don't know any other way. I was saying second was the first loser before it was cool and Ricky Bobby. I mean, that's the way we grew up. That's the way, and I talk about it here because we have a metropolitan area, be it Myrtle Beach, and then we have the country or the South as we know it, this way, and I'm always talking about that is America. Those are the people that love their God. Those are the people that love the Bill of Rights. Those are the people that can actually tell you about the Constitution. I can take you in Myrtle Beach right now. We can go up by the Ferris wheel, and we could probably ask them Name one person in Congress. And they'll probably say Chuck Schumer. Nope, senator. You know, see, this is the type of thing. You guys do it all the time. Caitlin Bennett does it all the time out there in California. It's really easy to show the stupidity, but the stupidity is because we and I go to the baby boomers again, it was always, remember the summer of love. Take the summer of love and everything the summer of love stood for, where to the point, that's the first time in our country's history we had people actually standing up for communism.
Yep.
Openly.
I'll actually go to your earlier point. I was I'm a big states' rights advocate, in that the best government is the one that's closest to you. So I think one of the worst things that this country ever did was amended the Constitution to say the direct election of senators from each state. It completely takes out state legislatures from the equation, because it used to be that they would elect senators. The senator would be someone that was elected from within the state body. So it'd be someone that you like most of the time that you knew, and they would send that person to Washington. If they didn't vote like the state wanted to, they would recall him. So,
yep.
Like what we've gotten away from is that this whole top-down stuff that we've gotten are a whole bunch of issues that don't need to be federal. I can't tell you the amount of opinions that I've read where it was either Scalia or Thomas or one of the other justices that are saying, why is this even here?
Yeah.
Like, why are we even talking about this? Even when it comes to abortion. Now, don't get me wrong. I would rather that abortion would be illegal everywhere. But according to our constitutional structure, even if Roe versus Wade is overturned, which I would give that maybe like a 30-70 shot in the next 10 years. But even if it's overturned, that does not mean that abortion is illegal. That means it goes back to the states and they can decide it as they choose. And while I may not want to live in that other state that may have legalized abortion, that does not mean that like I can shove that down that state's throat against their will. Like every state would have their own law, and they would regulate it as they see fit. Now I would fight against those states with not legal action, but with like trying to persuade people and trying to say like, okay, I see where you're coming from, but like, you know, what about the life of the human that's in that person? Like, just trying to go bounce ideas back and forth off each other, not trying to hit that person, trying to help them understand. But that's how we should be doing with all these issues. The federal Constitution is a couple of very distinct rights or distinct duties that they are meant to impose. Everything past that belongs to the people in the states or in those governments, just like Trump said in that debate the other night. The one question for California one answer for California is not going to be the same answer for Illinois or South Dakota or Montana or none of it. They should be deciding their own futures, and the people within those states should be making those decisions, not the people from 50 states imposing their will on all these other states. So, yeah, that's my soapbox. So,
actually, I got one point to make, and then I'm going to go ahead and give my my little thing, and then I'm going to bounce out of here myself. Okay, we got things we got to do. Just wrote my announcement. Yeah. So real quick, but just like what he was like what Chad was saying is like, do we have to really get to that point? Because like Chad's already there, right? And that's the same way I feel as well. Like a lot of people come out to me like, hey man, you're a hero, you're so brave or whatever. And by the way, everybody that thinks highly of me, I really appreciate it. I love you all. But have we gotten so disconnected to our American values that what I did was just ask a political candidate a question has now turned to bravery? You see what I'm saying? That's dangerous in itself. That we've gotten that removed, that is now a brave thing to do. So that's very dangerous. But I do have a big announcement. I've been working on something really nice with Chad here. And coming out of South Carolina, a place called Elite, right? Yeah. Elite Firearms in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. We are now officially coming out with this is not a spoof, a real AR-14. And I'm very excited to announce that. So everybody that's listening right now, Please
Take that,
keep
Joe
it-
Biden, you son of a bitch.
Let's keep it between us, okay? A lot of you guys can actually go on my social media at Jerry Wayne AR14 on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And but just make sure when you guys comment, don't let other people know that AR14 is coming, because this is very, very early, and you guys are in the exclusive club. So just type "I know." There are very few people know about this. So
Oh, it's driving
just go ahead
people
and do
nuts.
that.
Just
Yes.
type "I know," because it's driving people nuts on all the social media. And if you can, go to I'm Fired Up on Instagram. I'm Fired Up on Facebook. I'm Fired Up on Twitter. There's somebody that runs that Twitter. I don't know who
So
it
we
is,
just
but-
got on Twitter recently, but I tell you what, guys, I personally will vouch for Chad Caton. This guy is an American patriot, and I highly recommend you guys give him a follow for sure.
We got to get it done. That's my big thing about my show. I end every show with this, and it's show up, stand up, speak up. It's your republic. Fight for it. That's my main goal.
I have to
Chad,
ask,
I
what's
will
that
have
chamber?
you on the Schumann Show sometime, just singularly. Let's get fired up, man. Let's go.
That's what
There you
I'm
go.
talking
Do
about.
this,
Let's stomp
man.
on some idiots.
Yeah, let's all stick together and let's do this thing. I want to touch on a
What's
point.
that
Jerry,
chambered in? I need to know.
get out
What's
of here.
that?
What's that chambered in? I need to know now.
Well, I'm fine with that.
What's it? I
556-223.
Yes. Well, a 2,
Oh,
2, 3.
okay, awesome.
The barrel still skeptical right now, but as of right now, it's at the very minimum going to be 556. But
Right.
we're trying to get it to 2, 2, 3, 556.
Nice.
I'm just telling you, this is not a joke gun.
No, this is going to be a must-have in your gun locker. That is actually going to be. It is going to be a very, very well-made, 100% American-made gun that is very light. We're trying to get it actually under 6 pounds.
16-inch gun.
But the ATF has approved it, so this is an official firearm now,
Right.
called the Jerry Wayne AR-14.
And it'll go from serial number 01 to
1776. So the first gen is only going to have 1776. And then
That is awesome. Well, Jerry I know you got to go, man. And Chad, it was a pleasure meeting you. You two are just awesome. I got to have you both on again. We're going to keep trying to do the
Anytime.
show with some guests and stuff and bring some people on. It's just great to discuss deeper issues, because politics, I think, is just the brim of what this nation needs to hear right now. So I appreciate you having on, but this show is not over. Not at all. We got Bobby Lopez coming on from Great Gadfly, and he's going to bring on his insight and his knowledge into what he thinks is going to happen in this election and where it's going, where it's been, why we're at this location. So stay tuned.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
Fellas,
guys.
thank you very much. And Shu will be on again. Thanks, bud.
Stay on.
Yeah, take care, man. You guys are awesome. Love you.
Got it.
Thanks, guys.
Bobby, it is fantastic to have you here, man. I mean, I feel like it was only a few days ago, right?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Everything.
Okay, I'm gonna try to put in my microphone to see. How's that sound? Is that okay?
That's perfect. Welcome to the
Yep.
Schumann Show, man.
Yes, yeah, it was fun having that debate. We want to do more of them.
Yeah.
The Spanish debate was fun, but I liked the person that was representing the progressive point of view, so it couldn't be like a takedown or a beatdown or anything like that. So it was a little bit too friendly. But I mean, we don't need every single debate to be like World Wrestling,
No, and honestly, I think it's nice to have discussion from different points. Like Jason Dutch was he's so intelligent and straight to the point on his viewpoints and everything like that. And you're very, very articulate. Like every word you say just packs a punch. And it was the first time that I met either of you, and having you both on kind of debate everything out.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful moment.
We were nice though. I don't think it didn't get.
And it was
like,
great.
I mean, because he seems like a nice guy, and so yeah.
I know, which is weird. The moderator was a jerk, I heard, but other than that, it was pretty good.
No. So, what are you guys talking about tonight? But I haven't met this other person. Hi, how are you?
Hi, hi, how are you? I'm Rob. I'm Rob. I'm Josh's friend from high school, and I go to law school now, so I bring my perspective from that.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. All right.
So he's kind of a.
And
we adopted him into the Schumann Show.
Okay.
So yeah,
I don't like all my way because I go to a kind of a liberal. I go to a campus and I don't want retribution at this point. So
Right.
So, Bobby, I asked everybody at the beginning of the show, and I know we're bringing you in here, and I want to know who do you think is going to win and why?
I have no idea because I have no faith in the ballot counting. I'm really worried about that.
Okay.
I'm at the point now where I think that the polls are fake. The polls are really deliberately fake. I just think that the Democrats have gotten way too invested in this election. I think for them, it's like all the marbles. It's either they win or, we die, or like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I do think that Trump probably, if the votes are counted fairly, I think he will win. Now, I've tried to study all of the polls as much as I can. I'm not really great at this stuff. I wasn't a sociologist when I was getting my degrees, but it looks to me as though the one population where Trump has legitimately lost ground is among the elderly. And considering that Florida has that huge elderly population, that worries me. Now, on the other hand, I have just seen a lot of signs that the Latino vote is, I think the Democrats are in a huge surprise when it comes to Latinos. Because, I talked to a lot of people who did Spanish language canvassing. They were calling Spanish language voters in Arizona, Georgia, all across these different states. And they came back to me. These are Democrats. These are people who were doing it, trying to get them to vote for Biden. And they were just stunned. They called me because they wanted some insights into where is this all coming from. They said they were really surprised that a lot of the Latinos they spoke to, and these are, people who are not English dominant, they're mostly Spanish speaking. A lot of them, are really recently immigrated or might not even have citizenship yet, might not even be voting. So this is a population that you would think would be just in the bag for Biden, but a lot of them mentioned QAnon, a lot of them mentioned pandemic, a lot of them, there's a whole Spanish language culture that's being shared on Snapchat and on WhatsApp and on all of the social media that's, I think the Democrats are not aware of. So I think they're in for a huge surprise because I think that they started 2020 assuming that the Latino population was going to stick with them. And it's possible that at the beginning of the year, the Latino population was in the bag for them. But I think that Black Lives Matter pissed off a lot of Latinos. They did not respond to it the way the Democrats thought they were going to. I think they thought that we were all going to jump on board. Whatever appealed to African Americans was going to appeal to us. And I think that they didn't really understand how much the violence was going to, alienate us. Right. And how much radical Black rhetoric actually kind of excludes us and attacks us. So that was a big factor. I think the COVID thing did not work in the favor of Democrats at all among Latinos, because I think a lot of Latinos, and I can speak for myself as a Latino man who got fired from the seminary last year, and I'm working in the kind of job market where a lot of Latinos are working, where we're working in temporary jobs that don't have the kind of standard job security. I think a lot of us, we wanted the businesses to stay open. We wanted life to carry on. We wanted to be able to get out there and do the kind of contract work that we have to do. And so I think that Democrats alienated a lot of particularly Latino men with all of the COVID restrictions and the lockdowns, because this is very personal for me. It's amazing. I mean, I was a professor a year ago, but now I'm living the life of a lot of folks in the community where if I can't leave the house and go to work, I can't feed my family.
Right.
And I think also one thing I've realized is that with Latinos, with the healthcare thing, Latinos really hate Obamacare. And I think Democrats just missed that. Yeah, because what does Obamacare do? It's not giving you're not being able to opt into Medicaid or Medicare. You're being forced to pay really expensive premiums for insurance that, for a lot of us, like my kid is going to need all of this dental work. It's going to be thousands of dollars. And under Obamacare, if I had that, when I was looking into it, I was going to have to pay something like $2,000 a month in premiums, and I had like a $5,000 or $6,000 deductible. I mean, for a lot of Hispanics, that's just impossible. It's out of reach. So I think they're in for a big surprise with that population. But I don't think the Black population is going to go in large numbers to the Republicans. I mean, it's a great idea, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Right.
I think that course is already so set in the African American community. But I think Latinos might surprise them. I think women are going to surprise Democrats. I think a lot more women like Trump than they expect. But the one thing that might tip it into Joe Biden's is this elderly vote, which I don't see Republicans thinking about or addressing.
Which is so weird because, as we were discussing earlier, like the Republicans are kind of like the party of the white old man. But Rob, I kind of want to get your thoughts on this. Like we always hear, this is the election of our lifetime, and then,
yeah, the most important election.
Yeah, 2016, it was like, this is important. You need to vote. It is the most important election of your lifetime. Well, if that were true, I'm a cat, and I have like 100 different lives because I've heard it since I was like little. Like even with Bush or Obama. And all that.
It's the same. It's the same line. It's the same line used 100 times, and I'm pretty sure that they probably used it back when Taft was running for president. And
so, what does this? What's on the line for this election? Like, why is this election important?
This election's important because there's a whole bunch of precedent that the left is willing to break wholesale in order to get what they want. They're willing to completely just because usually the deal that was struck was usually if you add a state, you add one state that's probably going to lean left and you add one that's probably going to lean right. And they're willing to, like, I don't know if they can get DC in as a state, but they're willing to admit Puerto Rico and get those two senators. If they could get DC, they would do it too. If they could do it by hook or crook, they definitely would. They're willing to. I mean, if we're talking about precedent, and like I said before, the precedent rule is that the longer it's been precedent, the more deference is given to it, especially when it comes to the law. The fact that they're definitely down to pack the Supreme Court. That's scary to me because, I mean, this has been for.
Do you think they'll do
this
it?
has been. Oh God, yeah. They're like. I don't think it would give them a second thought. Like, if you actually look at the recent like confirmation hearings, so if you look at the confirmation hearings and you see, like back to Borking, so it was the Democrats who started that horrific practice, then after they did Borking, they did the Ginsburg rule, which means that like you can't ask them any serious questions on like what balls or strikes they would call when it comes down to a case, so that to obfuscate the judge's record, so they don't have to answer straight questions, which I find ironic because then they ask the same questions to conservatives and they're really mad that they don't, call those balls and strikes. So, but anyway, so then you go to all this to like the filibustering the nominee, which they also did, which they also invented, and then the nuclear option, which is having to invoke cloture on the committees in order to get them out of there. I mean, they've started all these things, and then right when they had the power back in 2012, I think is when I think it was 2012 or 2014 when they got the Senate, and they said, you know what? Like Mitch McConnell said when Chuck Schumer called him, like, I think that we're going to get rid of the cloture vote. So it's only a straight party, like it's a straight 51 vote to get judges passed. And he goes, please, dear God, don't do this. And they did it anyway. And then as soon as they don't have the power anymore, they start crying to high heaven about it. I mean, as soon as they get the power, they're willing to just throw all the rules out the window. It's a very dangerous left we have in this country right now. I think that Joe Biden is not a bulwark against the left. He's been a weather vane politician his whole career. He's a career liar. And as soon as they get him out of the way, Kamala's right behind him with her leftist record that's been that way ever since she's been in. And then it's just straight down the leftism road. And I don't even want to know where that leads. The compact that's coming up with the whatever, the interstate compact with the popular vote system, that's coming down the line. And if they pack the court, then even if that gets constitutionally challenged, it's not going to be overturned. So, I mean, it's a very scary, like this very well could be the most important election of our lifetimes. I mean, they keep on saying it. They got to be right at some point, and I think this time is where they're gonna be right.
Bobby, before I want to ask you the same question because you always have such a unique perspective. But the thing that scares me the most about this election is it's, how do I want to put this? It's devolving us as a Western culture. Because of Western culture, we've been able to come together and we've been able to establish rights. And it's not because we remember in ancient Rome or with the, you know, like when a theocracy is inset, sometimes that doesn't work because you have that person that's in the theocratic position who is extremely corrupt because the power has gone to the point where Bibles aren't distributed or anything like that, right? Now, and then you have the other spectrum of that, and that's total hierarchy, and that's you have an absolute leader who determines everything. But then on the flip side of that, you have total anarchy. Well, when you have total anarchy, and this is where I feel that the United States is going in a weird way, because it's not that we are promulgating one person to be king, but rather everybody's wanting to take control of their own lives so much so that they're forming tribes, and it's devolving the hierarchy into forming all these little tribalistic units. You see it with like the Black Lives Matter movement, or you see it with Antifa, and how these people with like ideas and like ideologies or anything like that, they gravitate toward each other and they start to form these groups. Well, then these groups disagree with one another so much so that they're legitimately willing to beat each other over it. They're like, we see the riots, we see cities burning because of it. And I think the tribalistic mentality of this all is really hurting this country. And it's so weird because you would think anarchy is no government with no rules, but we pushed government so hard that it's just fracturing us all into these small little units that are forcing us to be in these tribes, and then these tribes are ending up kind of going to war with one another. And I feel that if Joe Biden wins, it'll say that it's okay to do that, because Joe Biden doesn't have a love for the country as what Donald Trump has for the country. Like Donald Trump loves his country. He loves the United States. Like if anything, it is that, like, he and granted, like, I wasn't a huge Trump fan, but he loves his country, and I think that is a rallying cry. That is a chance for all of us to come together, to cast aside our differences and be like, brother, we are Americans, we should be in this together, we should be able to discuss ideas and build up on them. And I think with Joe Biden, that goes away, because with this Rob, what's that project called? The project that the left is promulgating. Instead of 1776, they're saying that it's 1619 project.
1619 project.
I think that is killing us. And when they see America as evil, that pushes us into tribalistic tendencies. Bobby, what's your take? What do you think?
Well, I think, I mean, you bring up Rome, and I think that's a really good prior example. I think I have spent a lot of the year contemplating on history and going back to historical precedent, because it's become clear that the United States, we are an exceptional country, but we're not immune to the things that we saw in the past. You know, large countries, great empires, great nations, they do experience moments like this, because Let's take, for instance, the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917. What happened in that instance? Russia was involved in a war. You had a very charismatic and very ambitious, somewhat unscrupulous leader, Lenin, and the German enemies of Russia paid to smuggle him in to Russia in order to start a revolution. And then once he was able to do that, there was a civil war between the Bolsheviks and the conservatives in Russia. And what was the mistake that the conservatives made in 1917? They thought that the answer to the Bolsheviks was to bring back the Tsar. And they didn't understand that most people in Russia, they weren't wild about the Tsar. They didn't really. So we're in a situation like that right now where, we have a conservative movement that just really has never been able to understand what the left is doing. They've never been able to mount an opposition. They rely very often on really antiquated talking points. They overestimated how appealing some of their arguments were. And so we have this left, which has spent probably, I would say, 130, 140 years coalescing into a very potent, very dangerous, very false, but a very potent ideology. And they have been very systematic about taking over all the institutions. So they've constructed a mental landscape through their influence in culture and in education and in all these things. And they're now wanting to have their moment. They're wanting to take control of the government. They're wanting to close the deal on their vision, which is basically Marxism, Freudianism, and Darwinism mixed together. And I think what's happening is that conservatives, and this does not apply to Trump, but it applies to the Republicans that Trump overcame. I think the mainstream conservative movement thinks that the answer is to tell people the things that got Reagan elected, to talk about the free market and to bring up the Constitution. And I love the Constitution, but the fact of the matter is that even the people who framed the Constitution knew that that piece of paper alone was not going to be able to keep the country on a good course. Of course, there's going to be cultural developments that require other things other than trying to have political power. So I think, as someone who I've been involved in the creative arts, and I've written plays and had them produced. I was a professor for 20 years. I think the big problem is that the conservative side of this, they basically abandon the arts, they abandon the cultural institutions. They constantly complain about how liberals dominate in schools and universities and in Hollywood, but they never had a plan to take back those institutions. They never really invested in trying to raise up people with conservative values who could compete with them in those institutions, and they put all of their energy into politics. So naturally, this election is for people who don't want to be on board with the left, which doesn't necessarily include only conservatives. It may include disaffected liberals, it may include libertarians, etc. But for everybody who sees the left for the threat that they are, I mean, Donald Trump is our only hope, because the conservatives put all of their investment in politics and in winning elections. And if we can't win this one, if Donald Trump can't win this one, where do we go? What is left open to us? The schools are going to be a done deal. I mean, I'm glad that Trump finally, but it's so too little too late. He finally talked about cancel culture, and he's trying to have this commission on education. But I think he's misfiring on this, because if he's not going to address the discrimination, the persecution against conservatives in hiring and in promotion and in funding in educational institutions, he can tell people to teach patriotism to students, but who's going to be doing the teaching? The people who are in teaching positions. And conservatives have been purged from that institution, and conservatives never had a plan for how to rectify that. They let that happen. They said, well, we'll just found Hillsdale, we'll just found some Christian colleges, and then all of the faculty at those schools went the same way. I mean, they didn't really have a plan for it. So I think that's why this election feels so monumental, because this is all we have. I mean, it's scary. It really is scary. But I mean, I don't even think that a Republican majority in the Senate or the House is absent Trump. I don't think that's even going to save us. But the only thing we have left right now is, if this man does not get elected, I feel like it's over. It's over. And in my lifetime, I don't think the tide is going to turn. I can't tell people to just go out and vote and or to do things to chip in to try to change the tide later on. I think that this really is a monumental election. I've never felt the need to convey a strong message in favor of one candidate like I have for this election.
And like,
Yep.
yeah, and like when it comes down to, like you were saying, there's just this inherent kind of like friendliness to the Republicans, like in their roles in government, and they've really never grasped how dangerous the left can be, because they've really relied on this friendly nature, like, oh, but we're all really good friends, but like Schumer would stab Mitch McConnell in the back as soon as he turns around. Like I think if they were walking out the door, if he were kicked out of office, he'd be like, oh, one more thing, like Caesar, and then it would just like they're only it's very much a Russian mentality or a Soviet mentality of they're only friendly to you and as long as it's working in their interest, and as soon as it's not, they'll cast you out like the garbage. And I think
it's
like we need
Leninist, because that's the origins of their whole ideology. It's Marxist Leninism, and it's been consistent that way the entire way. They behave like Lenin. If you want to understand what the left is doing, study the life of Lenin.
And if you look at every communist government, it is always just doing going along to get along until they've gotten the power, and then it's just bloodbath. And it's it's bloodbaths to not like people who like it's not like they tolerate some people. No, it's party line, and everyone else goes. So toe the line or dead man. I mean, it's so clear, but like you said, they've taken over the educational institutions. They've taken over writing the history books and the media. So these bloodbaths that we conservatives keep on trying to shout at the whirlwind about, we never hear about because the voices never get out there, because like you said, we don't have the culture. We try and shout on Twitter, but we don't have Twitter because the algorithms and the people rule us out.
Well, and I think this. I maybe I emphasize too much education, but that's the field that I was in. I was in higher ed for 20 years. I mean, I don't want to brag, but I had a Yale degree. I was fluent in 7 languages. I had publications. I was a really established scholar. And then I was driven out of tenure. I had tenure in California, and then I was fired by a Baptist seminary. And during all of it, it was like watching a car wreck in slow motion, because I wasn't the only one. There was a huge purge of conservative professors. And I mean, I just saw the more that they talked about education, the less they were doing to address the problem. How many times did we have to listen to the same speech from Ben Shapiro? And then Charlie Kirk gets all of the funding to form all of these student groups. And I remember going to Washington, and I sat down with some of these people from the conservative movement, and I said, you guys don't understand what's happening out there on these campuses. Conservative professors are getting fired, and you're not doing anything. You're putting all the money to like organizing a student group so they can invite Ann Coulter to come and give a speech. Most students don't go to speeches. They don't go to outside speakers. What happens in the classroom every day, every week, that is going to determine the course of America. Carol Swain got driven out of her job. Anthony Ezelin got driven out of his job. Robert Gagnon got driven out of his job. I could go on and on and on. Mike Adams ended up shooting himself in the head because he was driven from his job in North Carolina. And these conservatives, honestly, I mean, I hate to sound like I'm raising my voice, but they didn't do anything. For decades, they didn't do anything. We had David Horowitz out there trying to get radicals fired because he was on some weird Don Quixote mission that he thought that he could get every liberal fired from the academy. That was never going to happen, But he could have helped conservatives stay in their jobs, and they didn't do that.
Or real quick, where do you see this? Like, why the hostility? Where is it going? Why is it here? What do they think they're doing? Rob, I know you got to get going. Just leave us with your thoughts on this, and then I'll bug you out, and Bobby and I will carry the conversation for a little bit longer.
Well, so what was the question again?
So why so much hostility? Why now? Like we see like this
Because they have such a stranglehold on the voices against them. I mean, I'm at a university, I'm in law school. Like there's so much of a pressure to do what's gonna get you a letter of recommendation or just to be liked, that you just want to kind of go with the flow, or you want to say like, oh yeah, Roe v. Wade is a good decision, when in your mind you think it belongs in the burn barrel.
Right.
Like you keep like you it's this like they know that they can stranglehold people, because like even if someone shouts, that no one's going to hear them because the media is not going to say anything. Like you might get one like hardcore conservative to really believe in your cause, and you might get an organization like Alliance Defending Freedom to rep for your cause, but it's only going to end up on maybe Fox News or a local affiliate. So it's not like it's going to get that much play. And then after that, who's going to hire you? Like Bobby was saying, it's like these institutions aren't exactly going to you're like, what, you're going to go to Hillsdale and get hired? Like, they already have their teachers. So like, it's like, they have this stranglehold, they have this hostility, and they're willing to use this ban hammer on their campuses. They're willing to go to the mat, and they're willing to finish people's careers off like this. Like the person you were saying, he killed himself because they tried to ruin his life. I mean, it's so ugly, and it's so terrifying. But I mean, I don't understand how people are surprised by their behavior. They've been doing it for 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah, and it's funny because to jump in on what you just said, they're expressing all of this shock about how Twitter is suppressing articles, and I'm glad that they're expressing that shock. But I'm also wondering to myself, this is how academia has functioned since at least 1990. I mean, the kind of suppression and just outright, arbitrary dismissal of people. You can get fired for saying the wrong thing. You're going to be taken out of the classroom. People won't have access to you. You're not allowed to get published. That's been going on for a long time. And so, I'm glad they're shocked at Twitter, but I wish that they had done it earlier.
I know, Rob, you got to get going. It's been awesome. Like I said, you're probably going to become a normal part of this whole thing until we decide.
I hope so. And Mr. Lopez, it was a pleasure meeting you.
Good meeting you.
Take care.
Yeah.
See, and Bobby, I have a weird take on this, because I treat, and maybe this is wrong. So, like, I grew up an evangelical Christian, and religion and faith is super, super important to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I view this, I view the left as, okay, so it's all involved in culture, right? Like the world that we live in is involved in culture. And culture derives from the Latin word cult, which is a way that people express themselves, right? In a public surrounding.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this cult that we have is legitimately the cult of the left. It's how they live. And how they live is a religion of self. They worship themselves. It's being able to negate responsibility, the ability to go out and work, the ability to go out there and make something of yourself, because that requires responsibility. It requires, picking up yourself by your bootstraps, so to say, and get you out of the mud and make something of yourself. We see this with abortion, not wanting to take care of a child, or in regards to student loan forgiveness in the schools, and some of the things like that. And when I see that, I see when Joe Biden is offering some of these things, it's what they want, and it's a religion. Now, a religion is much of a deeper commitment than what a viewpoint would be, or something like, I like ice cream, but if you convince me that this hot dog is really good, I might try the hot dog instead. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not as attached to that. But when you make this politic your religion and you adhere to it and you feel like you have to fight for it, then that's when you get extremists in the sense like we see extremists with Islam and stuff like that. And I feel that the extremism of the leftist religion is coming out right now because they have somebody who's going to grant them what they want in Joe Biden. And then you have the right who wants people to live their everyday lives. But you see, considering the left as a religion, they have this need to convert people. And it's through this conversion process, they feel like they need to insinuate violence. And that's where I feel this election matters more than just a fundamental level, but on a spiritual level for some people, because they adhere to it so much and believe in it so much that when you try to take it away, they feel like they have to hit the streets and burn buildings down because of it.
Well, I think that it's a turning point for Christians, regardless of who wins, or regardless of what the battle is. There are a lot of challenges we can talk about that are going to await Christians if Trump wins. But I mean, if Biden wins, I think Christians are really going to have to face very dark hours of persecution. I think one of the things that happens in the left, I would say, and I'm speaking as someone who I grew up in a very left-wing family. I have siblings who work in the offices of Dianne Feinstein and Bill Clinton and Nancy Pelosi. I mean, I was immersed in it growing up. And when I try to talk to my siblings or my cousins to this day, it's almost impossible to talk to them. And the reason is because for them, it's not politics. For them, it's the way the world works. It's all they've ever seen. You know, they live in a liberal, it's a different reality. They live in a liberal culture that they knew from home and from going to school. And there are a lot of people now, the children and the grandchildren of the people who went to Woodstock. For them, they've lived their whole world surrounded by this habitus, this way of living, this habit, this culture, you know, which comes from that Latin root of to grow. Cultus was the things that you cultivated, right? You grew. And so for them, they think that politics just should fit in with the way that they have lived their lives. And in recent, I would say maybe in the last 15 years, what happened with the left is that they, over the decades, they saw places that still had a way of living that was outside of their mentality, and they went over and they gentrified those places. So they decided, you know, I'm sick of being just another liberal living in a big city. I'm going to go out to the farm and I'm going to take over the farmers markets. And then all of a sudden, did you notice how farmers markets became full of hippies and like, you know, liberals? A lot of places that I was with, all of a sudden it wasn't conservatives. It wasn't, you know, it was like that was taken over by liberals. And then they decided to take over the ethnic neighborhoods. So they moved into places like Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and they turned that into an artist enclave. And then they decided at some point, well, you know, now I have kids. I want to raise them as liberals, but I want to go out to the suburbs. So then they gentrified the suburbs, you know, so you have lots of suburbs that, you know, places like outside of Dallas where probably 70% of the people are going to vote Democratic because they've taken over those things. And finally, at one point, liberals realized that their lives were lonely, that it was empty. I mean, my family's a good example. My mother raised us with the value that you should go to whatever educational program and whatever job is going to cultivate your career and bring you, you know, a good standing in your profession. And it doesn't matter if you have any family that live there. So as a result of that, she had 4 kids who all live in different cities, and we barely ever talk to each other. That's very common in these liberal families, you know. So they realized that they were lonely, that they were sad, that this way of living made them really unhappy. That a lot of their adventures had brought them a feeling of shame or a feeling of depression and loneliness. And so finally, just like they took over the farmers markets, they want to take over the churches, because they look at people sitting in church and they say, oh my gosh, there's this religious person who gets to stand in front of a crowd. He has a captive audience. He gets to share his opinions, and he has the anointing from God. So everyone has to listen to him. And so the liberals, they cultivated all of these theologians who had a very specific and misguided reading of the Bible that said that Jesus Christ was a revolutionary and he was there to uplift the poor and bring down the rich. So they had a ready-made theology and tons of books ready for them. They took over the Episcopalian Church. They took over the Methodist Church. Now they're taking over the Southern Baptist and the Catholic Church. So they gentrified the churches. And I think that that is one thing where Trump at least was someone who gave an audience to the Christians who wanted to hang on to the religion and not let the religion get gentrified and get subordinated to this liberal theology. So he had meetings with very conservative Christians. And I think that if Joe Biden gets elected, the problem is he will not be hostile to all Christianity. What he's going to do is he's going to invite into the White House to talk all of the compromised liberal namby-pamby leaders of these churches who have been doing the gentrifying. They're going to have an audience in the White House. They're probably going to get tons of funding for Baptist Child and Family Services and Catholic charities, and food pantries and all of this stuff. So there'll be tons of money flowing into the churches. The money's going to come from the government with strings attached, so they're not going to be able to quote unquote discriminate against gay and lesbian couples or be pro-life or any of those things, and it's going to get really watered down. So I think that a Biden victory represents a huge danger for the churches, and I think the only thing I can say to counteract that and to be a little bit nonpartisan is I think Trump, I have my worries because Trump has evolved since 2016. At the beginning, I think he had these really hardcore conservative evangelicals surrounding him. And then there were a lot of people who were never Trumpers in 2016 in the church leadership who now are swarming around him like flies around, a bowl of honey. And I think a lot of those grifters are going to be surrounding him in a second term. And it's going to be really hard for people like you and me to just go to Washington, D.C. and have a meeting with anyone who can actually bring a message to Donald Trump, and to have a voice. So, I think that we still have challenges ahead of us if Trump gets elected. It's not like, okay, he's elected, I can just, twiddle my thumbs and let it go. But a Biden victory is so dangerous that, I have to try to advocate for Trump to get elected.
Okay. So I want to throw this theoretical situation onto the field, I guess. If you were talking to somebody, let's say just some alien landed down, right? And he had no idea what was going on. And well, I guess what would you be your argument in regards to why somebody should vote conservatism over liberalism or right over left in political terms?
Well, I got to go because my daughter's calling me for dinner, but I'm going to leave you this one last thing. It's really simple. I would just have to go. I couldn't make it just be nothing but positives about conservatism. All right there. You want to come and say hello to the online show? You come and say hello. No, she doesn't want to. My daughter's like, she's got a shot. I'll be right there, honey. Basically, the left is so dangerous. And there are moments when you do have a danger, an ever-present danger, an enemy within your country, and that's basically the left. And you have to do it because if you don't vote to stop that right now, you're going to be living with the consequences, and you're not going to be able to blame anyone but yourself for living in slavery. All right? Absolutely. Thank you very much. I got to get going.
Thank you for coming on. We'll have to set something up that's not so spur of the moment to have you on the show for a full show.
Bye-bye.
Have a great time.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So I guess just to wrap this all up, and I want to answer that question itself. When it comes down to voting conservatism over liberalism, we have to take into account what the view is of this world, through what lens is it that we're looking on. And when that lens comes to be about, it's based on a world of truth and reality. We live in a world of truth. We know a man is a man, and we know a woman is a woman. There is absolutely no way that you can make one into the other by just promulgating thought, by just thinking that that's the way it is. You cannot make a reality out of what it is that you perceive to be true. You can't think something into existence because that is outside of reality. That is not something that you can be a part of. And I want to go a little bit back to what my previous show was on, and that was on the subject of truth. We on the right live by a standard of truth, of reality, something that we live through each and every day. And the basis of reality can be a lot more complicated than just what a normal person says. As I discussed what the main difference is between the left and the right. The left views the world as everything is can be formed or changed, or that nothing is absolute, that it can all be morphed into a different entity, would be the same. Because when you go back into history, we look at Plato's theory of forms, that there is no full existence of what maybe an apple is, right? Like we talked about this, like we know what an apple is, but it's because we've all come together as a community, as a group of people to decide that this item right here is a legitimate apple. And we've all just compromised on that. Where in fact, a true apple in its truest form is only in the theory of forms, and that is at its truest form. And nothing can ever live up to that expectation, because this world itself is not perfect. Where we as Christians, we view the world as a world of truth based off of Scripture. And when you take that view based off of Scripture, you come back all the way to the Garden of Eve, where everything was made absolutely perfect. Scripture says it was perfect. And when you enter into the garden and sin becomes involved, then everything becomes imperfect, and it starts to denigrate and devolve and become into something else. And that's where everything kind of fell apart from that. But we know what truth is. We know what perfection is, because we as Christians, we have a recollection of that in Scripture. And based upon the Scripture, we're able to see reality as truth. We're able to have something that's solid to stand upon, something that we can be like, this is real life. You can't tell me that a man is not a man and a woman is not a woman, that a woman is a man and a man is a woman. That doesn't make any sense. That's outside of reality. But when you have some sort of theory that is so embedded in your mind that there is no such thing as truth, you can make life into whatever it is you want it to be. And that becomes dangerous ground. And that is what the left is pushing for. They're pushing for a world of imagination where you don't have to take responsibility. And when this happens, it denigrates life to be meaningless. Abortion is just the tip of the iceberg, my friends. Abortion is the start of it, because pretty soon, if you begin living off the state, the human person will mean nothing. In fact, as soon as you stop contributing to society, as soon as you become too weak to contribute to society and to perform your task, you are known as useless. You are a tool in their cog. But according to truth, according to Scripture, you're a living being. You have life in you. And that life has the ability to promulgate and make something more of other people. We don't live in this society for ourselves. We don't try to make the best of our lives. We don't, to a point we do, but our goal is to help each other up, is to take your neighbor by the hand and to be able to drag them up to higher heights, to be like, brother, your life is struggling. You need to follow me, and we need to move forward. This is just, it's the difference between truth and lies. When you build your life on lies, you have nothing to stand on. Your reality is in shambles. You can't base anything on anything. And how is that to go through life, to know that everything that you're doing is based on a lie? It's based on someone's perception of what something may be. And it can be changed so fast that you won't be able to comprehend what the next trend is. We see that with the left, with them eating each other. And I mean that figuratively, of course. But the left takes each other to town whenever they use a derogatory term. Or, well, that doesn't mean that anymore because like 5 seconds ago it meant something else. But on the right, we see truth. We have fundamental values that we abide by. We have a morality that is based in truth, that is based on a legitimate, proven through time thesis that works. This theology, this fundamental ability of this Christian culture that has built this great nation is close to being destroyed. And when you take the foundations away from anything, from a house, from a building, from anything, the rest of the building begins to crumble. And that's what's on the stake for this year's election. And I stress to you, if you're too uneducated, don't vote. Just don't. If you don't know what's going on, don't vote. But if you vote, at least know what's on the line. Are you willing to go into a world where nothing is true? Where you can make anything you want it to be, or I can claim to be a millionaire and all of a sudden I'm a millionaire? Or are you going to live in reality? Are you going to vote for reality? Are you going to vote to put food on your table? Are you going to vote so that you can get out there and get a job? Are you going to vote so that you can go and make something of your life? Pick yourself up by your bootstraps, get out there and make something, build a business, become something, build a better life for your future generations than what you had today. Anyhow, this has been an insanely long, I guess, presentation, but it has been a joyous ride for you. If any of you stuck through this entire thing, props to you. Anyhow, I'm just going to close this out, but think about who you vote for. And like I said, if you're uneducated, don't vote. I'm your host, The Shoe, and this has been The Schumann Show.